Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
August 23rd of 2020, or August 7th, of 2023. So I'd like to go back to that episode. That episode is titled Living Life Head First with Brandon Mulnix. And I looked back at that podcast episode a couple of weeks ago, and out of 137 shows we have aired, it's ranked number 12. So it's in the top 9% of all the shows we've aired as far as downloads and downloads. So I had to have him back on. Over the past 2 years, Brandon has become a dear friend of mine, someone that I actually consider my brother. We've shared some incredible conversations. We've had some great times together in person, a lot on the phone, a lot through text. So I want to welcome him back because he has an amazing story, and he's one of those guys, as we're talking now about voluntary adversity over the next several months, we're going to bring in special guests and have a conversation on that. He's a guy to me that exemplifies that voluntary adversity, purposely doing difficult things that are good for you or for other people. And he does it, and you're going to hear it through his story. So my friend Brandon, my brother Brandon, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast for the second time.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me back. Look forward to this episode.
Well, the last time you and I talked, you were not even accustomed to being on that side of the microphone. Now you're actually pretty good at my side of the microphone because can you tell everybody a little bit about what you've done over the past year or so? Year and a half?
Yeah, Brian, you gave me my shot back in August of 2023. The first time I was ever on a podcast was the Bamboo Lab podcast, shared the story. And from there, it kind of got me curious. So I started looking into podcasting, and then that November, I started the Poultry Leadership Podcast. And yeah, it's taken off from there, where I've 26 episodes in, and I've just talked to farmers and industry professionals and great people from the outside that have great stories that help farmers and, people that work on farms continue to grow. So I was able to kind of spur that passion on, and I've been on a couple other podcasts since that aren't the Bamboo Lab or the Poultry Leadership Podcast. So it's been kind of exciting.
I think you're selling it a little bit short, too. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Poultry Leadership Podcast because I don't follow – I'm a podcast junkie, but I only have about 3 or 4 podcasts that I follow. Joe Rogan, obviously, is one. Ed Milet, number 2. And the Poultry Leadership Podcast I've listened to. And actually, you've had some amazing guests on. And what I like about your style, Brandon, it's very open, very vulnerable, very authentic. And you get a conversation out of somebody in 30 minutes. Like, you do a really good job of getting their story, getting their wisdom, and getting them to talk about things that are meaningful to themselves, as well as to the other people listening. In the course of a relatively short period of time. You've come a long way in that podcast, and I love listening to it. I mean, you've had some guests on there that are pretty worldwide, too. Let's call it what it is. So everybody get on there and go to Spotify, go to wherever, and Google the Poultry Leadership Podcast with Brandon Mulnix. So, all right,
thank
brother.
You, Brian.
Hey,
thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Okay, so folks, as I mentioned a few moments ago, we are talking a lot, or we're going to be, I should say, over the next several months on this concept of voluntary adversity. So let me give you the definition of it. Voluntary adversity is anything you do that takes you out of your comfort zone. That's the first part of the definition. Number 2, it has to be something positive for you or for other people. And number 3, it has to be voluntary. It's something that you do on a daily basis or a consistent basis in your life that scares you, but is good for you, or it helps someone else. So Brandon is that guy. When I started looking at this content and creating material and content for the voluntary adversity concept and theory, I immediately thought of Brandon, so I reached out right away. And he said, yeah, I'd love to come back on. So, Brandon, just start off a little bit and tell everybody a little bit about yourself for those who may not have yet tuned in to the episode back in August of 23.
Yeah, Brian. I'm from Middle Michigan, a little town called Saranac. Grew up, very small town. Didn't know much of the world outside of my town until, got 18. And then, just started hitting, as your episode said, life head first. A lot of my story comes from challenge, kind of proving people wrong. And, to kind of dive right into it, back in high school, I was a cross-country runner. Absolutely loved running. But I didn't know really where that would take me. And, of course, you get out of high school and I didn't really run much right off the bat. But I had a coach that said, I just kind of told her one day, hey, I'm going to make Runner's World. And I'm going to do marathons. And she's like, yeah, you know how hard it is to make Runner's World? And, she kind of shrugged it off. But to me, I just, must have planted a seed that day because, later in life, as we get through the story, I made Runner's World. So I'll give you the summary. But to get to that point, really took a lot of adversity, and it was not the normal route. I wasn't the winner of a race. I wasn't running for too much, I wasn't Forrest Gump or anything like that, but I definitely, was worthy enough of a story because I kind of had that adversity. But before we get into that, I'm married, got 2 kids, adult daughter and a junior in high school son. And I get to help farmers out, help farmers by providing technology to them and, also hosting the Poultry Leadership Podcast.
And I've told a lot of people when you gave me a tour of your facility, 2 months now it was ago, I was so impressed with that place because you and I talk on the phone every week and we talk about work and we talk about the workplace, your workplace specifically, and getting a tour of Prism Controls that day was really, really interesting. I was so impressed with, the people I met, but also just the organization of the place. It felt like I could eat off the floor in every room I walked into. And that tells me a lot about a culture. So I got to give a shout out to your workplace.
That's not bad for a company that provides technology for chicken barns. So I'd be careful eating off the floor. We do have return product from time to time, and I'm assuming some of that chicken dust gets on the floor from time to time. So be careful about eating.
I caught you on a good day then. Right. So for those who don't understand, before we get into this, Runner's World magazine, for those who aren't into running, is the premier magazine for runners. I think there's another magazine called Runner or Runner, I think was another one. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, I was big into running. I ran road races and I wanted to be an Olympic gold medalist. And, I subscribed to all the magazines, read Dr. Sheehan's book on running. And Runner's World was when that came every month, it was like the highlight of my month. So that is the premier magazine for runners around the world. So, so let's talk a little bit. Can you tell that story in more depth? Because I want them to hear the kind of the grit and the passion that you've used in your life. And this is just one example of how you've overcome and you prove people wrong. This is a really good sampling.
Yeah, the story starts in the February of 2011. I was just finished my first 50-mile trail race in Florida. And like any runner, I was, okay, what's the next race? And my friends, the community around me had talked about, other races out there. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to sign up for a 100-mile race. And this is end of February. So I've got the races in July. I've got some time and thinking, okay, I got to get in shape and get in better shape. Running 50 miles, in 12 hours, I consider myself not in that great of shape to then turn around and do a 100-mile race. But in the training of that race, just a few days later, just signed just paid the deposit to get in that race. All that to say, I was on my way home from work, and I was hit head on by another car, which, when you're in a little Ford Escort and you get hit head on, you find out very quickly how big you are, because I literally, busted the airbag, the steering wheel, took it all into my face. And, looking back, I don't know how I was alive. I had 12 fractures in my face, and I, was basically, should have been airlifted. It was that kind of a day. The weather was snowy, so I wasn't airlifted, but I was taken by ground, and my world was changed. One of the best events in my life had just happened, and I didn't realize it yet. So, at the hospital, my face is broken. Doctors are like, hey, we're going to have to wire you shut. And I just had to make the decision. This can be a good thing or a bad thing. I can bring joy to those around me, or I can literally be, basically depressed and why'd this have to happen to me? And, my inner self has always been make the best of every situation. And in that moment, I decided, you know what, I'm going to be joyful for those around me, because when you talk with your mouth wired shut, it sounds really, really bad. But people, I got really good at being a ventriloquist, so to speak. I could talk with my mouth wired shut, and I still didn't leave sight of my goals. I still had a race to run in a matter of months. And so it was, let my body heal. I found out a few days later I had some broken ribs from the airbag. I had some other, little injuries here or there, including a head injury that I ended up hiding for a number of months with caffeine, and didn't realize just how much trauma I had been through until later on, when I realized that, hey, I was hiding a pretty bad concussion and didn't even know it. So, yeah, that's kind of the start of the story. And from there, after I was cleared, I started running. My jaw got unwired. Everything's good. Did a 100-kilometer race in New York. You talk about mental toughness, running around a half-mile loop around a pond for 12 hours to see how many miles you can run. It was exciting, because got done with it and ended up with 100 kilometers in the books, or 62 miles.
Folks, we lost Brandon signal. So Brandon's going to finish his story about his situation with the accident, and ran a 100-kilometer race, and go from there. Brandon, take it away, brother.
Yeah. So my jaw was unwired, and sorry, Brian, you mentioned 100 kilometers. Have I already talked about mine, or the New York race after?
I would say it again, just in case it didn't catch.
Okay.
I think you did, though. I think it recorded.
No problem. So my jaw got unwired shut, and, I had to get started training. So one of my first race back was signed up for a race in New York. It was a half-mile loop around a pond. It was called Mind the Ducks, and it was how many miles can you run in 12 hours. And it was a good little event. Enjoyed it. Wore out a pair of shoes, and I was able to accomplish a 100-kilometer race. It's crazy to think that, I think it was 2 months after I was cleared to run after my accident, I was already back running 100 kilometers.
And your jaw was not wired at this time. It was the wiring.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I was wired for about 6 to 7 weeks right after the accident happened. And then they, freed it up, and I was able to start taking nutrition again normally. So,
wow.
Yeah. So once I got cleared, I had that 100-mile race signed up for, July, Burning River. And that race was from Cleveland to Akron, Ohio on the Buckeye Trail. That trail is beautiful. It's part of the North Country Trail that goes from North Dakota to the Appalachian Mountains.
I've hiked that trail. That's a beautiful trail.
Yeah, it's just on the far east side of Ohio. But the race in itself, it was just another accomplishment for me. I really kind of took for granted, even though the temps that day hit in the high 90s. But why I say it just took for granted, because, most people, they say just a small percentage of people will ever run a marathon. A few, much less percentage will ever run an ultramarathon or 50 miles. And then here I just run 100 miles, and I was looking for the next adventure. But what really struck me was during that race, probably about, 50, 55 miles into that race, I had this sharp pain in my jaw, and I had no idea what was going on. And when you're in a race like that, your body hurts. I mean, your knees hurt, your ankles hurt, you get blisters, you chafe. It's just you put your body through living hell voluntarily, mind you. But I had this pain in my jaw, and I'm like, there's no way that this pain is going to keep me from finishing this race. And, took some ibuprofen, Tylenol, whatever, and the pain kind of relieved. But what I wasn't expecting was a week later, I'm sitting in the oral surgeon's office, the guy who had repaired my face, the guy who had figured, put me back together, so to speak. And he was scheduled to pull a tooth that was broken in the accident, but they wanted to leave in for healing purposes because it wasn't causing me any problems, but it was just there to kind of bridge the gap in my jaw to, get everything back in line. And so I wake up from sedation to Dr. Kintz, and he's like, yeah, we kind of have a problem here. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, I pulled that tooth and basically your jaw hadn't healed in that section. And the plate that I put in that section of jaw actually was broken in half. I'm like, how is a plate, titanium plate, broken in half? And of course, my wife probably chuckles and says, well, you talk too much and you wore it out already. But Dr. Kintz basically said, I had to go schedule for a surgery in the next few days to basically wire me back shut. And that was not what I wanted to hear, because in the consultation, I'm like, okay, what are my options, doc? He goes, well, you can be on bed rest and soft foods for 2 months, or I can wire you shut and you can go back to your normal life and do whatever you want. I'm like, you mean I can run? He goes, I don't see why not. And of course, I didn't really fill him in on the details because I'd signed up for 2 more ultras that fall, as well as a number of other races. But what really got me was he's like, well, if it doesn't hurt, do it. So I set out to run an ultramarathon, 50 miles specifically, with my jaw wired shut. And if you've never been wired shut, it's hard to appreciate the value of hard foods. Foods that in a normal race, like oranges and soup with noodles and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and all the treats that they give us runners as we try to compete. None of that was applicable to me. I couldn't eat any of it. And so as I prepared for that race, I was eating Boost and Sure V8 and putting salt tablets, grinding them up in the space that was left by that opening in my mouth, and shoving salt tablets in, which are the nastiest things when they don't have their protective coating on them anymore, just to get myself through the 50-mile race. And in the process of all that, I started looking how I could help others. Just because I couldn't eat didn't mean I couldn't do something, use this race for somebody else. And so in that preparation for the race, I contacted a local food bank and said, hey, how can I help? And they said, just raise food. So I got a bunch of sponsorships in terms of, just put it out on social media. Hey, I'm doing this crazy thing. If you want to help, please, sponsor per mile, 1 food item per mile. And next thing I know, I've got thousands of items of food, being donated to, this cause. And, okay, so I'm going to run this race. If I get 25 miles in, great, no big deal. Well, I finished that race. And even during that race, when I was absolutely I was so drained. The nutrition was way off. And an ultramarathon's all about, it's an eating game. It's all about nutrition. If you to keep your sugars up and keep your body and your mind focused. Well, the interesting part was, even during that race, when I was at my lowest, I found somebody that I could help. I came upon a lady that we would later become pretty good social media friends and kind of follow each other through our running careers. But I just remember her just having a really bad day. She was so hurting, so bad. And I think we were probably about, 15, 20 miles before the finish. And that's a lot when you're hurting in a 50-mile race. And so I just walked with her. I just encouraged her. She couldn't tell right away what was going on. She just knew that there was a funny talking guy behind her. But I was able to just encourage her, help her, get her through. And I think it was about the time we got to the first aid station together that she's like, eating oranges and Oreo cookies and all this. And I reached into a bag that my buddy had dropped off where there was some Boost and Ensure. And she's like, oh, that's healthy. That's good. And then she realized that I was not able to partake in the normal food of the event. And so thankfully my buddy helped me out, dropped me off food. And together I was able to finish that race with Lisa. Well, didn't think anything of it until the local newspaper picked up a story that you can still find today about a man, runs 50 miles with his jaw wired shut for, to raise food for local charity. And didn't even really think much of it. Okay, my name's in the local paper. Great. I happened to share that, how I hurt my jaw back when my car accident. I was a supervisor for a local county. So this was the local paper for that county. Well, it wasn't until I started getting calls from people outside of Michigan saying, hey, I just heard your name in Houston. I just heard your name in California. And I'm like, what? This is crazy. So I Googled my name and the story got picked up on the AP press. And to this day, you can find articles with my name all over the globe. Japan and Australia and all these different, news, different news sites that pulled that story about a guy running 50 miles with his jaw wired shut. And so, again, not thinking much of it, thought the claim to fame was over. And a few months later, I get a call from Runner's World saying, hey, we do this article called What It Takes. In January 2012, they did a story about a guy running 50 miles with his jaw wired shut to raise food for a local organization. And I couldn't believe it when I opened up that and then opened up, reviewed the article and just smiled from ear to ear because I remembered exactly what I'd said to that cross country coach that I was going to make Runner's World one day. So that's the Runner's World story.
It's funny, as you were saying that, I just Googled it. And yep, we got San Diego, CBS Boston, CBS Detroit, Los Angeles. There is Daily Mail. Wait, almost. Yep, Daily Mail. Wow, dude, I didn't even know that.
Brian, what's interesting about the whole thing was the conversations around it. Like ESPN even did a little clip on it. I can't find that one to this day, but they did a little video clip on how crazy, one of those just funny stories. I must have hit the news cycle just right because it was definitely one of those humorous stories. And you don't want to read the comments on most of the websites because they're definitely inappropriate about what would it take to become famous. And this idiot just ran 50 miles and what an idiot.
Never read the negative comments anyway. So that I didn't realize. So I knew you had helped a lady through a race. I didn't realize until now that was the same race your jaw was wired shut.
Yeah.
So have you kept in contact with her?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She moved out west, and I get to follow her ski adventures and everything else. And from time to time, we check in with each other. And yeah, it's been cool just to kind of support each other's.
So when you look back at that, so I think Brandon, I think there are moments in our lives that are kind of an impetus to other things we do or don't do. I think when you have an opportunity to give up on something that's important to you because again, you don't want to practice voluntary adversity. You want to stay in your comfort zone. That affects us the rest of our lives. And most of us aren't even aware. But when you do something that makes you a better, higher version of your spiritual self. And I think that your character, your values were all tested at that time. And you primarily took complete control and you exemplified who you are as a man. Has that been an impetus to other things you've done since then, whether it's in your personal life or professional life, when you can do that and not only just do it with your jaw wired shut, and do that grueling race, but at the same time, during that, taking a moment and inspiring and supporting a fellow runner on the trail. Have you looked back at that and thought, well, I guess, have you ever looked back that consciously or unconsciously and use that as a fulcrum for something else that you go through that's challenging?
Oh, yeah. It's when you've done something that takes that much endurance, that much, go through that much pain, that much struggle, and just physically, emotionally during that time. I mean, everything I was going through, to get there. It's something it's a foundation that I can go back and rely on. I mean, I'm not going to say that I've had the best running career since then. I took 10 years off. But when I even got started again after a 10-year break of running, it was, you know what? I've done 100 miles before. Why can't I do this 3 miles in front of me right now? And the adversity and that's in the running side of it. In the other part of the world is, I mean, I've traveled with friends on mission trips just because I know it's going to be hard. I've traveled, to Ethiopia where we eventually adopted my son because I knew it was going to be hard. So you lay a foundation of adversity in your life voluntarily that allows you to have enough faith in yourself that you can do just about anything. And that foundation is what's got me through business. It's got me through personal, trials and struggles outside of physical activity. But it also, it's what gets me up in the morning to go work out at the gym. It's what gets me up in the morning to sign up for a hard race.
Well, I think today you said to me that after your hard workout at the gym, you actually just went for a short 4-mile run. Now, a 4-mile run is a torturous, sorry, we got a little dog here barking, is a torturous even workout for most people to do, the average person. So I want to ask you a question. So I'm a listener on the podcast, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm never going to run a 100-mile, 50-mile marathon, even a half marathon. I just don't have any desire to do that. And I sure in the hell I'm not going to do it with my jaw wired shut. But I understand the premise of what Brandon's saying. What advice would you give to somebody so they can get up in the morning and practice some level of voluntary adversity?
I guess it's do you want to be a better version of yourself today than you were last night when you went to bed? We don't grow by having happy things and good things happen to us. We always grow through our trials. We always grow through anything that's adverse. I mean, I always look at the old scripture verse, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. That means iron hitting each other, iron in the fire, iron being tested. It's not through just happy stories. I mean, and so, if you're getting up in the morning, you're trying to, get off to the gym, or you have a vision to make change in your life that either makes you healthier or better in some way. It's, what's more important, that extra little of sleep or making yourself better? And it comes to a point where you have to want help more than you want the comfort. And I've just chosen in life where I really want to get better than I want comfort.
And you and I spoke this morning. We talked. You and I had a short conversation on. I'm a firm believer of this. I don't think our goal in life is to seek comfort, and I think a lot of people will disagree with that. They think life should be comfortable. We should seek happiness, and we should seek happiness. But comfort is not the route to happiness. I don't believe that, because when we seek comfort, we could seek comfort and find comfort every day, or at least we could appear that we found comfort by sitting around and watching TV, eating bad foods, putting bad things into our bodies, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, whatever it might be. That is seeking comfort. But is it really comfort? I think when we seek comfort, we don't ever really find it. But when we seek voluntary adversity, when we do the things like you said, get up in the morning a little bit earlier and do the things that are harder to become a better version of yourself each day, then at the end of that day, we can reward ourselves with some comfort, and it's earned comfort. And I think earned comfort is what we really do all seek in society. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to bypass the earned part and just get the comfort. But there's no comfort unless you work to get it, unless you work to earn it, unless you do the extra miles, you write a little extra on your book, you spend more time with your family, you do the things that make you a little uncomfortable potentially, or you don't feel you have time to do, and you do those to better yourself or others, and then the comfort is earned. And I think that's where when you and I talk, we've met face to face a few times. You do have you're a big guy. You're, I don't know, 6'3". I don't know what the hell. You're taller than I am by a couple, like 2-3 inches. You have a fairly strong presence. You got the big, long, flowing beard. But you come across as calm. And there's this calm demeanor about you in the way you talk, the way you present yourself, the way you carry yourself. And I think that is earned comfort. Because you worked not just that morning by running how many miles you run or going to the gym, but it's also the years of difficulty you put yourself through, the times you've taken yourself out of your comfort zone voluntarily, whether it's through running or through work or through your family, that brings a calm, confident demeanor to a person. I firmly believe that. You can tell a person who's anxious a lot and nervous a lot, and they never seem comfortable in their own skin. Almost, not always, but a good amount of the time, you can probably guess that person probably doesn't practice a lot of voluntary adversity. They're up in the morning, they're getting up when the alarm goes off, pushing snooze 2 or 3 times. They're grumbling on their way to the office. They're grumbling through work. They come home, they eat, they watch a little TV, they go to bed, and they just don't stop and say, wait a minute, how can I be a better version of myself today? Well, the first thing is you can just get up when your alarm goes off. That's the first thing every single day that you can do to practice voluntary adversity is don't hit the snooze button. That's 101. And if you can't do that, just do that tomorrow. Just get up when the alarm goes off. 3, 2, 1, get up and get out of bed. That's something. Make your bed right away. Maybe do 5 sit-ups. Maybe take a 15-second cold shower after you've taken your regular shower. It's just doing anything. And that's the thing, is start little, folks. Don't start by doing 50-mile races. If you're 99.99% of the sane population, you're not going to do a 50-mile or 100-mile race. But you can do those things to get started. There's something, and I'm going to kind of promote the Poultry Leadership Podcast right now, because one of the guests you had on recently that I listened to was Aaron Ralston. And for those who don't know, Aaron Ralston is the book is called Between a Rock and a Hard Place. And he was played by James Franco in the movie 127 Hours. And I'm assuming most of you have seen it or heard of it, where he was a mountaineer who got trapped between a rock and he had to, unfortunately, take I think it was a Swiss Army knife, wasn't it, Brandon?
Yeah, a really cheap knockoff version of a Swiss Army knife.
So the kind you find at a gas station for $3.99. And he had to saw his own arm off to get away and to save his life. And I don't remember his quote, but do you remember what he said about that moment? It was a defining moment in his life of some sort?
Well, what's interesting is, he's not just the guy who cut his arm off. He's the guy smiling while cutting his arm off. And that's the defining moment of his life, when he could look back and see all the joy and the gratefulness of all the people that had affected him, that gave him the motivation to, survive 100 and some hours before he hiked 6 miles out of the canyon after he cut his arm off. But, that's the moving message that really Aaron shares, as well as sometimes you have to amputate the things in life that are killing you. And so those are the two main messages that Aaron shares in a story. But life doesn't get any easier for Aaron. He's got continued with healing and more adversity from there.
Well, that correlated to what you said, and you came across it. You went across it real quickly when you talked about, when you were in the car accident, and you said it was one of the best events of my life, but I didn't know it yet. Can you share what that means?
Well, at that time in my life, I was very, very selfishly focused on one thing, and that was becoming a ultramarathon runner that people would recognize. And in terms of running. If you met me on the street, you'd know me. I would talk within 30 seconds. I was bringing up a marathon or an ultramarathon or something like that. Where today I don't really hardly talk about it much. But what I found was, I was struggling with my identity. I was struggling with purpose. I was destroying my marriage, because when you train as hard as you have to train for an ultramarathon, and you do it without basically without considering your wife and child at the time, it becomes, very unhealthy. And so the night of my accident, one of the things that I recall was just 30 minutes before my accident happened, I'm eating donuts, something I shouldn't be eating, as I trained, I just got done running this race and I shouldn't be eating. I just prayed, God, help me become healthy. And I was thinking, okay, if God's going to answer this prayer, it's a very selfish prayer, but it's going to be about helping me find something to eat other than donuts. Well, he answered that 30 minutes later when, I'm not able to eat donuts unless they're juiced and mushed and put in through a straw into the opening in my face. And so I thought, initially that the best part of this was the fact that I was going to lose weight. I did. I lost a lot of weight, which makes ultra running a lot easier. But again, my focus was back on ultra running. And what ended up happening with this is that accident caused me to rely on my wife a lot more. She had to navigate the whole home side of things when I wasn't working. And when I'm not active, I'm not a very happy person. I was trying to be joyful to everybody, but I wasn't necessarily always joyful to her. But in the end, if I fast forward a couple of years, I became a lot healthier. And why I say it was the best part of my life is the best event that could have happened was it was shocking. It was able to make me rely on others, rely on my wife, which in turn helped heal our marriage, which financially, when you're involved in a car accident and there's, the other person's fault, there's legal things. And I was able to get a settlement. And the timing of that settlement is what led me to Ethiopia, which allowed me and my wife to adopt our son from Ethiopia. And there's so many other moments that occurred that I can look back on that event being the defining event in my adult life that is a foundational moment for why it was the best day of my life. Had that not happened, I don't know, I couldn't rewrite the story. I don't know what God had planned for me outside of that event, but I'm very thankful for that event. And if, breaking my face and nearly, being killed was, what it took to rock my world and become healthy, then it was the best day of my life.
I think that's one of those messages that so many people can benefit from. I know for me, listening to that, I look back at myself, and you and I talked about this morning a little bit too. I think when you go through a difficulty, we all go through them. It may not be a car accident that causes your jaw to be wired shut with concussions and broken ribs. It may be a divorce or a bankruptcy or a financial scare or a health scare or, problems with a teenage child, or it could be a number of things that we go through. And we do wish that pain away. We do. When we're going through it, we wish we didn't have to go through it. Or if a loved one is experiencing it, we wish they didn't have to. But you don't go through any moment in life, especially those defining moments, and come out the same person. Because you either become stronger or you become weaker, because it does affect you. And so many people, I think far too many people, allow those incidents in life, those moments, to conquer them, to defeat them, and they come out withered and feeling less of a person, a man or a woman. But it's those people, and it's you, it's many of the Bamboo Pack audience right now who have been able to say, wait a minute, this is either the best or the worst moment of my life, and it's up to me to choose. I mean, I look back in the things that happened to me when I was a young boy, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But to say I'm glad I went through it, I don't know if that's what I can say, but I'll tell you, it's forged me to be the person I am today. And I know I wouldn't be. Maybe I'd be a better person. Maybe I'd be a worse person. I don't know. But I like who I am. And to go back and change it, I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and we were talking about if you were given the opportunity, if somebody said, go back and fix the three biggest, three things in your past or take $1 million, what would you take? And I don't know who would go back and change those. Because if you're happy with the person you are today, and you're forging every day to get better and better, you're still not the man or woman you want to be, but you're becoming that person by day. If you go back and change one thing, you're not that person today. Take the $1 million and just keep becoming a better person. But I just think that's so inspiring for those person out there. So I'm going to talk directly to that one audience member right now who is right now going through something difficult, or has in the past and is still wallowing in that disappointment or that self-pity or that pain, is to take that moment that experience you had or maybe are going through it now, and ask, how can I make this an impetus? How can this be the solid rocket booster to my launch to get me to the next level of life? Because it's in there. And every single thing we go through in life, every difficulty has an incredible lesson and an incredible benefit. But when we're stuck in it at that moment, we oftentimes don't see it. But it's at that moment or shortly thereafter where we have to look and say, what is it? What was I trying to be taught? What was the universe? What was God trying to teach me? What value did I get out of this? How does this make me a better person? How can I turn around and make sure nobody else experiences this again? How can I use my story, my experience to inspire others, the next generation, my family, my children, my friends? And I think that's exactly what you've done, Brandon. And I think the most impressive thing I've heard so far is that story of you walking alongside that woman. That boggles my mind. I mean, to think that you had to be uncomfortable. I mean, number one, you're running 50 miles. Number two, your jaw's wired shut. You're not getting the same nutritional value that other people are getting at the pit stop or at the whatever stations they're called, the food stations or the rest stations. And yet you took them a moment to inspire a woman. And I'll guarantee, I would guess, if I were to talk to her today, she'd say that was a defining moment in her life, as having a strange man who talked funny, who couldn't eat oranges, actually walking alongside me and keeping me going. I mean, that's how you spread love right there, man. That's how you spread inspiration and love around the world. And you did it. And you still do it.
Well, Brian, one of the things that, you hit on a lot of great things through there is when you're down and you're struggling and you're in the fire, it's sometimes to get out of that fire is to look left, look right and say, is there somebody I can help? Because what it does is it totally changes your perspective of what you're going through to say, okay, maybe I'm in this valley because there's somebody else in the valley with me. And it stops taking the focus on you and you get to now put that focus on somebody else. And that is the key question that, because when you're down, it hurts. When you're broken, it hurts. When you're lost somebody, it hurts. When you look back at your childhood trauma, it hurts. And none of that's not real. That's all real. And to say that, magically you have this ability that I have an ability to look at things differently. I did have hope in it. And I was very quick to self-evaluate and ask the questions. How can I help somebody else through this? Instead of me just being suffering in it. It's like, how can I help somebody else in this? And that's the thing that, changed my life in it, because it could have been the worst thing that happened to me. Could have destroyed my marriage. Could have destroyed, so many things, but it didn't. And that's the key that is when you're in it, sometimes you just have to go, okay, I'm in it. Now look beside me. Is there somebody else I can help? Because I'm here for a reason. And sometimes we overlook that.
And I don't think there's anything more powerful when you're in pain than if you're in a painful moment in your life and you can serve another person. It is one of the greatest venues for getting out of that almost self-pity that we fear. Because I think when you are in pain, and I can speak from practice on this, my own experience, when I'm in pain in the past, that's when I became the most self-centered. Because self-pity and self-centeredness they go hand in hand. And I wish I had learned at a younger age that when I was going through painful moments, that if I could look around and see who can I can assist, who can I inspire, who can I just walk alongside, I know that would have pulled me out of those dark moments that I've had in my life. Thankfully, I get to hang around with people like you, and you can teach me these things. So now I don't have that self-pity as much, and I'm a lot more selfless when I'm going through dark moments. And it pulls you out. And it could be even, literally it can be, if you're going through a dark moment right now, go serve in a soup kitchen. Go adopt a family at Christmas. Go walk down to a homeless shelter and pass out some pieces of pizza. It could be anything. Volunteer somewhere. Talk to somebody who give a shoulder or an ear to somebody who's going through something, and maybe even what they're going through may not be as dark and deep as yours, but by just assisting another human being, wow, it just gives you a sense of, hey, you know what? We're all in this battle together. Because none of us are going to get through life unscathed and unharmed. We're all going to come back. We're all going to end with battle scars. And just at different times, your battle scars came at this time, mine come at this time. But when you can help somebody to heal those scars a little bit, it helps your own heal much more effectively, that's for sure. I have a question. I know you've heard me since yesterday as I texted you this book, and I'm really getting into this book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I share with you, Brandon, I read this, and audience, I would recommend this book to anybody. Whatever, if you're going through anything in life, if you're trying to accomplish some things in life and you find yourself stuck, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I read it several years ago when it came out, liked it, but put it back on my shelf. And that this book, I've been hearing about others talking about this book in different avenues in my life. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll reorder it. And I did. It came Sunday night, and I've been devouring this book. And he talks in there about resistance. And resistance is that thing that we feel. It is self-imposed. It's almost like an internal demon that is there to stop us from reaching our higher selves. It can come in the form of many things. Procrastination is a prime one. It can become in the form of addictions. It can become a form of hollow sex. It can become in the form of watching needless TV. Anything that stops you or hinders you or distracts you from doing the things that you need to do to become a better version of yourself is a resistance. So, Brandon, I'm asking you. You've obviously, as you've run the 50s and the 100s and the marathons and all the things you've done, what type of resistance have you faced, or maybe you still face, and how do you deal with that?
That's a great question, Brian. It's, the resistance comes in, to me, comfort. You had mentioned all the different things, eating bad, drinking, all these things. I've gone back to a lot of it. And it was sort of kind of comfortable, but I got complacent. I got to the fact that I wasn't comfortable in those moments anymore, being comfortable. I'm not a good person to sit. I'm not a good person to just chill. And so, being in that moment of comfort, so the resistance is there. There's so many different things, the voices in our heads that say, for example, with the podcast, why you? What good do you have to bring to the industry? And just getting over it, getting through it, and being able to push through, it's tough. But once you're aware that there's an enemy sitting at your table, putting these thoughts in your head, trying to keep you from being the most successful version of yourself, you start to kind of pick back up where you left off. And you say, hey, you know what? I identified that was the enemy sitting there, the resistance, because probably if the enemy's causing resistance, there's something greater. There's something greater that's about to happen. There's something, if I obey and get things done, then things are going to, be where I need to be, and not listening to the resistance in my head.
And so the point is, everybody, Brandon Mulnix, who's run all these races, one with his jaw wired shut, has been in Runner's World magazine, has been quoted and his story been captured throughout the nation and across the globe as well. He, just like you, just like me, faces resistance. And sometimes we give into resistance, even at a high level like Brandon's. We give into resistance. I give into resistance more often than I want to. But the idea is to recognize what is your resistance and to keep fighting it. Because the problem with it only gets stronger. If you let it go, if you let it win, it gets stronger. If you keep battling it, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. But then at a moment, it finds this second wind. Resistance does, and it shines up and it fights you with more power and might than it ever has. And that is almost always when you're near the end of where your goal is. You're just about to cross over that precipice and hit your goals and achieve your marks. That's when resistance comes even stronger. So you battle it down, you think it's gone, and then all of a sudden, as soon as it comes back, you get close to your goal, it becomes stronger again, because now it knows you're literally killing it. So it gets a second wind. And unfortunately, that's when a lot of people quit. And they don't realize that final push from resistance, that final battle it had in it, is only a sign that you're right on the cusp of achieving your goals and hitting that mark. And the thing I like about in this book, Brandon, he talks about resistance. Obviously, resistance is self-imposed. We create it in our minds. But there's also, once we begin to battle our own resistance and become a better version of ourselves, whether it's you're making more money, you're happier in your marriage, you're in better physical condition, you're in better financial shape than you've ever been to, then oftentimes resistance comes from the outward, from the external. It comes from family and friends and people around us who start to judge us and judge you because you are becoming a better version of yourself. They almost have this, how dare you change? Who do you think you are? They start to impose different battles that externally that aren't yours to fight. And those are the ones that can be very dangerous, especially when they come from ones we love and cherish in our lives. And it's not that they're trying to tear us down. It's just that their resistance is kicking in. Their internal resistance is kicking in, and they're projecting it onto you. Because when they look at you at a higher level of life, they're not looking at you and judging you because they don't want you to be a better version of yourself. When they look at you, what they see is a reflection back on themselves, and they see the person they're not becoming. And so we have to be able to we fight our own resistances, but then also be able to deal with other people's resistances projected onto us down the road. So it's a battle, man. And you can see why so many people stay in their comfort zones, because it is a battle out there. It's a wild, wild west Jungle Book kind of battle when you're out there trying to become a better version of yourself. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing any man or woman or child can go through. And Brandon, you're an example of that. You fight it every day.
Thanks, Brian.
I always thought you were past resistances. I never thought you had any more.
Every day.
So I know you talked recently about you became complacent kind of in the recent past. You said you became a little complacent. You weren't running as much and things like that. I know we've talked about it on our Tuesday phone calls. How did you feel when you felt you were just kind of maybe losing that edge a little bit?
Well, it's disheartening for sure when you go from, just a few years ago, getting back into running races and doing the things and challenging myself physically and mentally. And then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, an injury pops up and, you start right back over. I mean, I can run 50 miles and my jaw wears shut, but a stretching calf injury that all I had to do was stretch and it went away, kept me off the trails for 6 months. And then just to get back to that. But what I learned about myself through this last period of time is sometimes it's okay to shift focuses enough where you're changing your body. So I just jumped into classes and started having somebody else plan my physical training instead of me just hitting the treadmill or hitting the trail. Just getting, having somebody else just you do the thinking, and I'm just going to do the exercising. And what that did is allowed me to, build a new community with some other guys that are in the same class that I am, and also just kind of, refresh the other muscles in my life, which goes on to say is, if I'm solely focused on running, all I'm doing is using the same muscles. In business, if I'm only focused on the same problem, I might be running into, being disheartened and trying to get that done. But what about the other muscles in my body that are weak because I'm solely focused on that particular goal? And so throughout the, whether it's a car accident, caused me to, stretch some extra muscles, rebuild relationships, rely on other people. Just through this last season, I've had that insight of, man, I need to make my other muscles healthy. And then maybe my running muscles will, hopefully keep me from, getting it back into that bored, dark place of complacency, or needless to say comfort. Because getting up at 4:30 every morning is not comfortable for me.
No, it's not. Well, it goes back to something that we've talked a lot about on the show here is the choosing your pain in life, the pain of the work or the pain of regret. And you can't escape pain in life. I mean, you just can't. Life is pain. Let's call it what it is. And we have to choose the pain we're going to experience. And getting up at 4:30 in the morning is choosing the pain of work, especially in Michigan. When it's 10 below zero in the wintertime and the wind is whipping and you're underneath a down comforter sleeping next to someone you love and the bed is warm. And man, staying in bed an extra hour, that's comfort. That is a lot of comfort. And that's the problem when you choose the pain of work and hard work. When you do it, you are instantly punished because you're up feeling discomfort. You're running, you're in the gym, you're drawing, you're writing, you're doing whatever you do early in the morning. And so you're instantly punished for it. But then when you're done, you have an eternal reward. Where when you stay in bed, you were instantly rewarded for it because you get that extra hour of comfort and warmth, snuggling up to someone you care about. Or even if you're alone, you snuggle up to your dog, your cat, whatever. But then when you finally do get out of bed, you feel the pain of regret. And that's eternal too, because you never get that moment back. You never get that hour back. And that's a tough one, man. And that's why I say people start small. Just get up when your alarm goes off. Just do that. And if that's the first thing, maybe do 5 crunches, 5 push-ups, whatever. Just start small, doing a couple things every day that take you out of your comfort zone. Maybe start with one thing a day and then add to that every week. Over time, you will be practicing on a consistent basis voluntary adversity. You might never run a 100-mile race with your jaw wired shut. You might never make Runner's World magazine, and hopefully you'll never have to saw your arm off in a crevice in a rock. But you will become a better version of yourself. And one of the things, Brandon, I know you work out early in the morning, so you practice your voluntary adversity early in the morning, which I think there's a benefit to that. But whether you practice in the morning, night, afternoon, it's going to work. But what I like about doing difficult things in the morning is it gives you a little confidence for the rest of the adversity you face during the day. Because life is nothing but a bunch of involuntary adversity. We're throwing adversity at us from external sources throughout the day. Things come up, pop up. We can't control those. But the way we can minimize their impact on us is by doing something in the morning that's challenging to us, because then we can say, hey, I got through that. I can get through this. It gives you a little boost of confidence. And that's really sometimes all we need to get through the day is a little extra boost. What do you think? Do you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. You're in a good mental space when, for me, getting up that early in the morning, and I've already done a lot, got my heart rate going. A lot of my best ideas for work come in that hour of working out and solving problems differently. And so, get a good jump start on the day. And if you work out later at night, more power to you. At least you're doing something. And
I think there's no better hour in the day between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. It's, there's a book out there called The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma that I read. I've read it a couple of times and I've had clients read it. And it's all about the power of the things we do in the morning dictate our days, and that therefore they dictate our lives. And that 5 to 6 a.m. it's a witching hour, man. There's so many things. There's nobody else up at that time. There's no texts. There's no emails. There's no phone calls. It's just you against yourself. It's you versus the person you were yesterday at 5 a.m. And that's the time we grow and become that man, woman we want to become. So, hey, any final word or message you want to leave with the Bamboo Pack, my friend?
Yeah. To go along with what you've been saying is just get started. I've heard that, the first step is to working out is just to drive to the gym. The next step is to walk through the door. Take it one step at a time. Don't take any fitness advice from me, only the fact that I've always done everything not by the book. So find your own journey if it comes to fitness, find your own journey when it comes to life, but always strive to make yourself a little bit better every day. And by the end of the year, you're a much better person and you can look back. But the key is with everything you do, even voluntary adversity, make sure you're giving back. The last thing I wanted, on my tombstone was, wow, I worked hard, or wow, I was a runner. Man, I hope my tombstone says, man, he gave everything to everybody else. And that's what's most important to me, is just to make sure that you're serving others more than yourself, and find your purpose through that.
I can't imagine a better way to end today's podcast. Brother, you are more than a friend to me, and I hope you know that. I'm so blessed over the past couple of years of how you and I can talk incredibly serious on some subjects, but at the same time give each other shit through text the next day. And that's the kind of friendship I value very much. So thank you so much for being my brother, my friend, and being such an amazing guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the brotherhood as well.
You're a good man. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. And please get out there and strive to give and be your best. Show love and respect to yourself. And like Brandon said, give it back. Share it with others. And just live purposely. Live with intention. And whatever you're doing, we talk about voluntary adversity. The best advice, Brandon said it already, whatever it is, Just get started. Until next time, know that I appreciate each and every single one of you. Bye-bye.